about spiritual guidance today, and I was thinking, what am I gonna talk about? What am I gonna talk about? And the Science of Mind magazine came, and I opened it up to the day, and look at what I found. I love this stuff. Let's see, it was written by Reverend Dr. Nancy Fagan. And she says on May the 5th, using our connection, there is guidance for each of us, and by lowly listening, we shall hear the right word. That's by Ralph Waldo Emerson. And then Ernest Holmes said, the universal mind contains all knowledge. To all things are possible. To us, as much as possible as we can conceive. And then Reverend Nancy went on to say, an unlimited, constantly available source of information exists in universal mind, and each of us has ready access to it. The information we request can and does come from anywhere, anyone, anything, at any time. While watching a financial information television program, I thought of a question I wanted to ask. As I was writing the phone number down for the call-in service, someone called in with the very same question. My answer was provided without my having to call. As I was enjoying a facial in a spa, I heard someone in the next booth provide the very information I wanted to know. When I was in the process of making a decision on a legal matter, a friend loaned me a book that contained spiritual insights that were exactly right for me at the time. When we expect information to be provided, we may remain alert to recognizing it when it appears. Each of us is naturally and thoroughly equipped with a direct connection to the universal mind. Just request. Information, please. So I think it is just delicious the way that showed up for me just when I wanted it to show up, and it proves the point that we are all able to tap into our spiritual guidance. Remember when you were a little kid and your mother figure or whoever was directing you talked to you about crossing the road or crossing the street, and the little cliche was stop, look, and listen. And that's the same way that we can tap into our spiritual guidance, by stop, look, and listen. So stop, take a deep breath, meditate, look around you, and listen for a source to answer your question. And the answer can come from any amazing ways, through any people, through any signal or sign. It's always available to you if you stop, look, and listen. Some would describe spiritual guidance as intuition, others as communion with God. We use various practices to access our intuition or experience of God through techniques such as prayer, meditation, and visioning. Carolyn Gregory, who writes for the Huffington Post, had an article on intuition. There again, there's the spiritual guidance that I needed. And she talks about 10 practices of people who use their intuition to move through life, or 10 practices of intuitive people. And the first suggestion she had was that intuitive people listen to the inner voice. So when you have that gut reaction of knowing exactly what to do, don't discount it. Listen to it and take action in that direction. The second is that they take time for solitude. They listen in the stillness. Now, I believe that meditation is the single most important practice of a spiritual lifestyle because it gives us that time to be still, to listen for the voice of spirit. It's like turning off your computer and allowing it to reboot and default set. Meditation is key to listening to spirit. Now people tell me, oh well, I meditate when I'm walking. Fine. Or I meditate while I'm in the bathtub. Fine. But the point is, as far as meditation goes, as far as taking time for solitude, it is as though you are making an appointment for spirit. And spirit's going to show up for you at that time. But when you don't show up for spirit at that time, you're sort of like blowing it off. So taking time for solitude. The other thing is that intuitive people are creative, and they take time to practice some form of creativity. In this community we've had soul collage, and ironically in this same magazine edition there was conversation about being creative and about soul collage. So that even I can do soul collage, because it's just a matter of cutting up pictures and putting them together in a unique way, and that is creativity. And it's very satisfying. Intuitive people practice mindfulness, meaning that they are living in the present. They are being aware of what's going on around them. They're seeing what they see in a deeper way. They're listening to what they're listening to in a deeper way. They're present in the moment. They are mindful. And in addition to that, they observe everything. They are available for those little cues that may pass some by. And when we talk about intuition and interacting with people, it's those little cues that we are able to understand and empathize with people on a deeper level. They listen to their bodies. They pay attention to what they eat and how their bodies respond to it. They pay attention to the little signals that their bodies are giving them. And they pay attention to that gut reaction, that little whoop in their stomach or wherever you get it. And they connect deeply with others. That's the same as being mindful and paying attention to everything, connecting deeply with others, truly listening, not interrupting, waiting for people to finish their thought, hearing what people say on a deeper level. And they pay attention to their dreams. I've been in the habit just recently, of writing down my dreams. I haven't had any real big aha moments. And yet, being mindful of my subconscious mind talking to me is worthwhile. Intuitive people practice plenty of downtime. That's in alignment with mindfulness and being in solitude, being in nature. We get so caught up in this culture about being busy that we don't allow time for spirit to give us the information that we're looking for. Or we don't allow ourselves time to notice the information that spirit is giving to us. And finally, they mindfully let go of negative emotions. So we practice in this community forgiveness, not for the other person, not because we're going to be so noble. We practice forgiveness because it's liberating for us. I think it was Steve that reminded me of the little remark about when we fail to forgive, it's like drinking poison and expecting someone else to die. I had this girlfriend one time. She had been divorced like 5 or 6 years previously. And in conversation, it came up, and I said to her, well, have you forgiven Sam? Hell no, she said. I'm going to make him suffer for the rest of his life. So guess what? Sam had remarried. They had children, a new family. And who do you think was suffering? My girlfriend. She was drinking the poison, hoping somebody else, poor old Sam, would die. It was like giving him fertilizer. So in Science of Mind teaching, the mind that is spoken of is not the individual intellect, but the greater mind of which we are all a part. And so when we realize that, when we realize this greater mind is the source of all seen and unseen supply that can be in the material or the thought form, the greater mind, when approached from an inward process, supplies all right answers and questions and actions to the experience of the good of God. Sometimes I think what happens to us is that our questions are nebulous. We don't know exactly what to ask. So our answers are sort of that same way. We pull a little of this, we pull a little of that, and it all comes out messy. The fault is not with the universe or with spiritual guidance. The fault is in our lack of clarity as far as our questions go. In the Edinburgh and Dorey lectures, Thomas Troward said, at times, the objective mind is for a while more closely in rapport with the subjective mind, and the interior voice is heard strongly and persistently. When this is the case, we do well to heed it. The importance of understanding and following the intuitive cannot be exaggerated. Now, Thomas Troward was a judge, and he lived his life based on logic. And he's telling us to pay attention to the intuition. And Ernest Holmes in the Science of Mind magazine said, what we call intuition is God in man, revealing to him the realities of being. So there was a conversation that I was involved in not too long ago, well, Friday actually. And there was a sense of confusion about the locus of God. And so when we pray, when we ask for answers, when we're looking for clues of how to make our lives more productive or to answer questions for us, yes, we turn within. God is within us. That is the locus of God. And while all I am is God, I am not all God. And that's the way, and that's how answers can come spun out from outside of ourselves. That's how I can find an answer to my question in a magazine. From my internal Godness, I ask the question. And from the external Godness, the answers can come. They can come from an outside source, or they can come from an interior source. It doesn't matter. What we can know and what we can count on is that the answers will come. If we stop, if we look, and if we listen, the answers are always available to us. That's the way the universe is set up, and that's how it works. When we ask for guidance, we receive guidance. And the only reason that we do not is because we are not paying attention. We haven't stopped. We haven't looked around us, and we haven't listened for the divine guidance. So, that's what I would encourage you to do this coming week. To gain spiritual guidance, simply stop, look, and listen. And the answers will come. I promise that. It's infallible. Either through yourself or from a different outside source. It's all the same stuff. And I love this stuff. And I love you. Namaste.
Namaste.
Now I would invite the practitioners to stand and join me as we hold consciousness. Please, Linda. Not the community. So I invite you to turn within, join with me. As I become aware of the deep, rich stillness of this moment. As I acknowledge that creative essence that is everywhere present, that I call God, or the universal mind, or the creative source. It doesn't matter what I call it. It knows itself to be that I am, that I am. So I know that each of us have questions. Each of us are looking for guidance. I can't presume to know what those questions are, but what I can know certainly, that I can ask the question in the stillness of my heart. I can trust the divine to give me the guidance that I'm looking for. And that is such a joyful gift. It makes my life so beautiful. And I celebrate that gift that we each have been given. The gift of life, the gift of connection, the law that mirrors back to me whatever I am thinking. So I call forth, on behalf of each one of us, divine, vigorous, good health, vitality, energy, divine abundance in all source and all manners of ways of goodness. I call forth relationships that are sustaining, reciprocal, joyful. I call forth all manner of good for each one of us. I call forth divine direction. Those lovely, subtle, some not so subtle, cues of how to live fully and richly. And today I say, thank you, Mother, Father, God. And today I say, it is all good because it is all God. And I claim it for each one of us by saying, and so